are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have everybody here on this Tuesday, December 12th. We got a lot to talk about on the show today. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that, let's get right into what we will discuss on the show for today. So, we'll start off the show. We'll recap both Monday night games from yesterday. And, it was upsets galore yesterday. So we'll get into that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to talk about some of the teams after Week 14 that I kind of look at as frauds now. And I don't like saying it for the teams that we'll talk about, but after this week, it kind of seems like that's the case. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Browns picking up a win. Joe Flacco's first win with the Browns since taking over as, right now, the starting quarterback. So we'll get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll go over the current standings, how the playoff picture looks currently. And we will get into that at the end of the show for the last part. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about last night's games. So I'm pretty sure I did say, after I did my picks for the game, or who I was picking, I said do the opposite. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Both underdogs won yesterday. I had the Giants on the big TV. I was following the Titans-Dolphins game on my phone because, I wanted to have the Giants game, on just because I'm a fan. And, I wanted that to be on the big TV. But, of course, I was paying attention to the Dolphins-Titans game because, I had some fantasy implications to go along with that. So let's get right into, let's see, which game should we, we'll get into the game that ended first. So we'll get into the Giants and the Packers game first. So the Giants were 6-point underdogs in this game. I didn't expect them to win. I thought they would kind of fall back down to earth, after, winning their previous two games. But that was not the case last night. The Giants surprised me in how they performed last night. Jordan Love, who was coming in playing really good football, the best football of his career, they held him to 218 yards passing, one touchdown, one pick. He went 25 of 39. And the Packers, messy game, turning the ball over. He fumbled. Also, Keyshawn Nixon on a punt return, he fumbled. He muffed the punt. It was a messy game for the Packers, but the Giants' defense, they played really well, I thought, last night. And they almost lost the game, but they were still able to come out with the win. And we'll go through the game summary. So the Packers, they punted on their first possession. Then the Giants punted. Packers punted. Then the Giants missed a field goal. And then the Packers went 7 plays, 62 yards, 3 minutes, 51 seconds of time of possession down the field. And Jaden Reed, which they love to do this, he scored a 16-yard rushing touchdown. It was on like those end arounds that they like to do. And he scored. So that put the Packers up 7-0. And then the Giants on their drive, they went 8 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes, 6 seconds of time of possession. That was set up by a 32-yard rush by Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a good game, and Saquon Barkley scored a 5-yard rushing touchdown to tie the game at 7. Then the Packers on their next possession, they fumbled. Jordan Love fumbled, and this was in Giants territory. Then the Giants turned over on downs, and then Jordan Love threw a pick, which then led to a Giants punt. Packers kicked a field goal, and it was 10-7 at the half. And actually, I believe both games were 10-7 at the half, which was really strange. Then the Giants punted, and then they scored a touchdown on their next drive. They scored a touchdown on the next drive. Saquon Barkley scored a touchdown from 1 yard out to make it 14-10. Packers then punted. Then they kicked a field goal, 32-yard field goal by Carlson, who actually missed another field goal later in the game. So it was 14-13. Then the Giants scored a touchdown to put them up by 8. Tommy DeVito connected with Isaiah Hodgins for an 8-yard touchdown reception. That was a great play to put them up by 8. Packers then missed a field goal. Then they kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter to make it 21-16. And then this is where it looked like up here, another tough Giants loss. So Saquon Barkley ran for 34 yards, and then he falls down, was not touched, and then the ball pops out. Packers pick it up. They run it back. They reviewed it, and so it was a fumble, clearly a fumble. And then the Packers, they turned that into a touchdown. Jordan Love connected with Heath for a 6-yard touchdown. They didn't get the 2. And then the Giants, 8 plays, 57 yards, 1 minute and 33 seconds of time of possession, got into field goal range, and Randy Bullock kicked a 37-yard field goal to win the game, and the Giants win 24-22. They get to 5-8. Packers drop to 6-7. Tommy DeVito went 17-21, 158 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. The Giants ran the ball for over 200 yards. Packers struggle against the run. Barkley had 86 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. The 34-yard run that he had that led to the fumble that definitely, brought up his rushing yards. Tommy DeVito had 10 carries for 71 yards. So, he was doing damage in the running game as well. He only passed the ball for 158 yards, but, made some plays with his legs too. Almost scored a rushing touchdown. And I think that was right before the Saquon Barkley 1-yard touchdown. Wan'Dale Robinson had a good game. He had 36 yards rushing, but he also had 79 yards receiving. Isaiah Hodgins had a touchdown in the game. Giants get the win. They've won 3 in a row now, and they're still technically in it. A lot of teams are 6-7. They're 5-8. They play the Saints next week, which is a very winnable game. I don't look at the Saints and say, they're going to walk all over the Giants. The Giants' defense is playing really well, and the Saints, they haven't been that good this year. So, the Giants could definitely win that game. The problem is they should have stacked some of the wins earlier in the season because they're going to have to beat the Eagles twice, and they're going to have to beat the Rams. So those are going to be tough games. But you know what? At least, sorry, dogs barking, of course. But anyways, they got some games that they got to win though because it's going to be tough down the stretch with what they got going on. Playing the Eagles twice, the Rams. But I think they could beat the Saints. So credit to them for getting the win. Packers dropped to 6-7. They did not play a good game last night. But I think it was a little bit of both because Jordan Love did miss throws, but Giants defense played well. I think credit to them and how they showed up. So, so that's what happened in that game. Then we got the Dolphins and the Titans. So, what can I say about this game? So the Titans, they have not won a road game this season. They've played very bad on the road. So you thought, okay, well the Dolphins, they should crush them in this game. And that was not the case. The Titans flat out won this game. Now part of the reason is because Tyreek Hill got hurt in this game, dealt with an ankle injury. He got his leg caught underneath a player who was making a tackle on him. And you just held your breath because you were like, this is not good for the Dolphins, and he was able to run off the field. He did make a couple of plays later in the game. He actually came back into the game, and it looked like, it was going to be a lot worse than what it was. He says it's still hurting, so it's something that he's been dealing with all year. So, but you know what? He's been banged up a couple times during games, and he's been able bounce back from him. So this was just another case of that. So we'll see what his status is throughout the week. But once Tyreek Hill got hurt, this was a completely different game. The Dolphins really just couldn't, generate a lot of offense. They cashed in on a lot of the Titans' mistakes. I mean, Will Levis threw a pick trying to set up a screen to Tajay Spears, and that made it 7-0 Dolphins. Then the Titans tied the game to make it 7-7. In the beginning of the game, Dolphins were driving, and then they fumbled. Tua fumbled. It was a botched snap. Then Tua picked it up, and then he got the ball knocked out, and the Titans recovered. But then Will Levis threw a pick six. Both teams punted. Then the Titans went 14 plays, 86 yards down the field, over 7 minutes of time possession. Derrick Henry scored a rushing touchdown to tie the game. Then the Dolphins had a blocked field goal against them. Both teams punted. And the Titans were winning 10-7 at the half. Then the Dolphins tied at 10-10. Both teams punted again. Titans kicked another field goal. Then the Dolphins kicked a field goal to make it 13-13. Both teams punted. Then the Dolphins got a touchdown. Raheem Mostert scored a touchdown from 3 yards out to make it 20-13. And then the Titans fumbled on their next possession. Literally the first play, Will Levis fumbled. And then the Dolphins went up 27-13. And you thought the game was over, right? Nope. The Titans then went 9 plays, 75 yards, about 2 minutes of time of possession down the field. Levis connected with DeAndre Hopkins for a 3-yard touchdown. Dolphins punted. And then the Titans, again, down the field. Big play set up. Will Levis connected with DeAndre Hopkins for 36 yards. And then Derrick Henry from 3 yards out scored a touchdown later in the drive to put them up by 1. Dolphins turned it over on downs, and the Titans got the win. I mean, you thought when the Dolphins were up 14 that the game was over, but Dolphins defense collapsed in this game, and the Titans get to 5-8. Dolphins drop to 9-4, and you could look at Tyreek Hill getting injured as one of the reasons why they just did not play well. But yeah, it was not a good game for them. And yeah, unfortunately, Tua kind of got exposed a little bit, and that wasn't good. That was not good to see. And we're going to talk about them, in the next segment, but I couldn't believe it. Big chunk plays. I thought, they were covering. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, all right, so maybe we got this. But then, the Titans are driving, and I'm like, all right, well, we're not going to get the cover, but the Dolphins are still probably going to win. No, Titans got the ball back, and then they went down and scored again, and they won. So this was a bad loss for the Dolphins, and, yeah, without Tyreek Hill, this offense just looked completely different. And yeah, we'll see what happens. He was able to come back in the game, but they got tough games coming up on the schedule. They got the Cowboys, they got the Bills, they got the Ravens. They got the Jets next week, and the Jets just came off of a big win. And, they got a good defense. And, listen, they're going to look to try to redeem themselves from, the embarrassment that happened on Black Friday. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, Dolphins got a lot of tough games coming up. So they could very easily, lose some of these games. And, yeah, the division's still kind of up for grabs. Because they keep, if the Bills can continue to win games and the Dolphins continue to lose games, suddenly, that last game might mean something again. Because I said that game could come down to that game could decide the division. And, with the Bills struggling, it didn't look like that was the case. But now it might be. Because, they were a whole different team without Tyreek Hill. And listen, you got to surround your quarterback with talent to also make them successful. But there's also the quarterbacks that are able to elevate, the players around them, and they could work with anybody and be successful. And with Tua, getting Tyreek Hill definitely made him a better quarterback. But without him, yeah, he looked a lot different, and that's where he's going to start getting criticism. So, so upsets galore last night. Big win for the Giants. At least I mean, it hurts their draft positioning, but at least they're not going to have like this, one of their worst seasons ever. They've been competitive. They've been winning games. So credit to them. And for the Titans, yeah, I mean, that was a much needed victory for them. For the Packers, I mean, they still have a soft schedule to finish the year, so they could still make one of these wild cards. But for the Dolphins, yeah, they got a tough schedule. And they're still going to be a playoff team, but, we'll see where they end up because that was a bad loss for them. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will then discuss the teams that are fraudulent. So we'll continue to talk about the Dolphins and another team as well that I unfortunately might have to give them the label as being fraudulent. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to discuss the teams that are kind of fraudulent. And the Dolphins are one of them. The Dolphins, unfortunately, are one of them. And I'm also going to put the Detroit Lions in that category as well. These two teams have high-powered offenses. There's no question about it. But more recently for the Lions, but really all year, there's been a lot of people that are, skeptical with the Dolphins because, they put up 70 points. Well, now the Broncos are a completely different team. I mean, who knows? If the Broncos played the Dolphins again, it would be much more competitive, and maybe the Broncos would pull out a win there. But, I mean, you're putting up 70 points against the Broncos when they looked like one of the worst teams in football. I mean, the Panthers, the Commanders, from a couple weeks ago. You only beat the Raiders by 7, who can't even score points against the Vikings. And then you go up against the better teams. You get killed by the Bills in Buffalo earlier in the year. You lose to the Chiefs, which you almost came back in that game, but still, you lost to the Chiefs. They couldn't beat the Eagles. You could point to a lot of games where, they you could point to all these games that they played, and they really haven't beaten anybody. They just haven't. And, last night you lose to a team that has not won a single road game this year. A team that's been very bad on the road. And, rookie quarterback who's been struggling a little bit after his debut. And, yeah, you end up losing that game. That's a game at home. That's a game you should have won. And I kind of blame, I blame the defense towards the end of the game because that was, you were up 2 scores, with under 3 minutes left, and you just let that team go right down the field. DeAndre Hopkins, carved up, that defense yesterday. He had a big game. Will Levis played really well. I should say Will Levis carved up the defense towards the end. DeAndre Hopkins was a big part of that. That's what I meant to say. But, yeah, because Will Levis went 23 of 38, 327 yards, a touchdown, a pick. They held Derrick Henry to 34 yards rushing, so you would think, they should have been okay, right? No, they lost. Because DeAndre Hopkins had 7 for 124 yards and a touchdown. Tajay Spears had 6 for 89 yards. I don't know what happened with the defense at the end, but, yeah, that was not good. And going forward, right now you look at the top, 2 seeds in the AFC. I think it's probably, Baltimore I think is going to get the 1 seed. But as for the 2 seed, probably it's still going to be the Chiefs. Listen, the crazy thing is the Broncos are 1 game back of the division lead in the AFC West. So that's something to keep an eye on. But, for me, I feel like the Chiefs still have the division. I don't think they're gonna pass them, but who knows? But yeah, the Dolphins are probably gonna have either the 3 or they might have one of the wild card spots, because again, their schedule is really tough towards the end of the season. And listen, Buffalo's got a tough schedule too. But, I mean, I could see the Dolphins slipping up and the Bills maybe having a shot, especially with that last game. Those two teams are playing each other. So, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, that was they right now look like frauds, especially losing to a team that just, is got a rookie quarterback, hasn't won a road game. They're not going anywhere. And, yeah, right now they look like frauds, and they haven't beaten a good team yet. So that's one team. Then I got to go to the other team, which is a team that I again, don't like saying it to because they got a lot of talent, like the head coach a lot, but unfortunately the Detroit Lions fall under this category as well. They have not been playing great for a while, especially their defense. I mean, their defense has been very bad. And, yeah, on Sunday, Jared Goff playing in cold weather did not play well. The offense really couldn't get anything going. And, the defense, yeah, they gave up some big plays. I mean, on a 4th and 13, Bears get a free play, and Justin Fields connects with DJ Moore for that long touchdown. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to even the Chargers game, too. I mean, they gave up 38 points to the Chargers, who have a high-powered offense. Well, now Justin Herbert, is going to be out. But, you gave up 38 points to the Chargers. I mean, you let Jordan Love and the Packers carve you up on Thanksgiving. The Saints almost came back against you. Justin Fields, his first game back from being injured. He plays well. They almost beat you. And then they just beat you on Sunday. So, listen, I looked at this team as, being better than the Cowboys at one point during the year. But, no, that is not the case anymore. And you go back to even earlier in the season. They played Seattle. That game went to overtime. Seattle beat them, what was it, 37-31? Whatever the score was in that game, 36-30, it was something like that. This team, they go up against good offenses, and they can't stop anything. And now, they're going to be playing Dallas in a couple of weeks. In Dallas, yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to win that game. They still got the Vikings twice. And they got the Broncos on Saturday for that triple header. That's the final game of the triple header. Listen, the Broncos, their offense is not. The offense has been better. Well, the offense has been good all year, relatively, but it's not this high-powered offense where they're going to put up 30 points. They play good defense. They run the football well. Russell Wilson plays mistake-free football. That's how they win games. They lost that close game to the Texans a couple weeks ago. But, they turned the ball over 3 times. You don't do that, and maybe, things are different. But the Lions definitely can win that game. But, I don't know. Broncos got a good defense. Their defense has been playing better. And they just continue their winning formula. And Lions might find themselves losing another game. It's been a tough stretch for them, and this team has a lot of talent. It's just between the defense and Jared Goff turning the ball over, it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good, and I just look at them right now. When you compare them to the other teams in the NFC, I have to they're the 4th best team right now. I mean right now you got the 49ers and the Cowboys as the top 2 teams. The Eagles, right behind them. And yeah, I mean, you put them there. That's how it should be, literally, after the last 2 weeks. And then I think the Lions, you put them there. I mean, I think they still win the division, but I mean, this team also could be one and done, depending on who they play. Like if they have to play the Packers again, I mean, it's gonna be a tough game. But I don't know. But I unfortunately have to put them in the fraud category. And there's a lot of people putting the Jags in the fraud category. I don't know if I want to put them there because I feel like we kind of know what they are. They're still good. Like all these teams are still good teams, but if you want to talk about taking it to the next level, they're not there. They're not there. I think the Jags, we kind of know what they are. They're a good team, but they got some inconsistencies. They've played down to their competition. I mean, losing to Jake Brown. Jake Browning the last 2 weeks has looked good. Against the Colts too, who were riding hot, 7-5, and the Bengals beat them, and the Bengals have re-entered the playoff conversation. I was like, this season's over, but not so fast, because they play the Vikings this week. Vikings have their quarterback issues. You play the Steelers, they got their quarterback issues. You play Kansas City, they have issues, but not a quarterback. And then they play the Browns at home. So and they have quarterback issues. Well, it's not as bad as the Steelers, because Joe Flacco, I think right now you would take, believe it or not, you would take Joe Flacco over Mitchell Trubisky. Right now, which is not saying that much. But you at least favor the Browns' quarterback situation, and the Browns have a better situation on offense than the Steelers do. But yeah, so the Bengals, we'll see. But yeah, right now the main thing of this segment is you look at the Dolphins and the Lions, who were teams that could maybe go to the next level. I don't think that's going to happen. Even with the healthy Tyreek Hill, I just, unfortunately, I just don't think they're going to get to that next level with Tua quarterback. I think they're kind of held back, and they have a very good running game. They got weapons all over the place, but this was a game that kind of exposed Tua a little bit, and he's played really well during the season. He's definitely a part of the MVP conversation, but really should be Tyreek Hill. And, I saw on social media it should be between Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey. It should be. There shouldn't be. Now, I think there's a few quarterbacks. You look at Purdy and Dak Prescott. I don't know about Jalen Hurts is kind of taking a hit with his MVP consideration the last couple of weeks. Those guys you could look at and say, they're MVP candidates, but I think it should be between Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey. It definitely should be. It's going to be tough now. Tyreek Hill might not get to 2,000 yards, especially with him being hurt. The fact that he came back into the game, and I think they're going to, make sure that they're not going to put. They didn't want to push it in the game last night, but we'll see what that situation's like going forward. But it should be a player that's not a quarterback. We'll take another look at the MVP odds. Tomorrow, actually, we'll do that. We'll also talk about the Heisman Award as well. That'll be a segment tomorrow. But the MVP shouldn't be. I think this is probably the year where it shouldn't be a quarterback, but it probably still end up being one anyways. So before we go into our second break, I just want to remind you guys again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show and makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the bottom of the show segment down below on the ticker there. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about the Browns, them picking up a win against the Jags on Sunday. Because I know we did a segment last week on, who the Browns should start at quarterback, and I think as of right now, they should keep, starting Flacco. But we will talk about that more when we come back from our second break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to discuss the Browns' win over the Jags on Sunday. We'll talk about the quarterback situation with that. Obviously, last week I did a topic on this, and I said they probably should just ride it out with Flacco until he plays bad. Because, listen, with Flacco, you get a bigger arm, you get more experience. With DTR, more mobile. So you understand both sides of it. But, Flacco, listen, he didn't play terrible against the Rams. Better first half than second half. That's the best way to put it. But here against the Jags, threw for over 300 yards. He did go 26 of 45. 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. Their leading receiver was David Njoku, who had 2 touchdowns on the day, 91 yards receiving. Amari Cooper had 77 yards. Elijah Moore continues to get more involved in the offense, 42 yards. David Bell only had 1 reception. It was for 41 yards. The Browns, I think it was on 4th and 3, they went for it, and they scored a touchdown there, so that was big in the game. But Flacco did spread the ball around. Did have a couple of turnovers in this game. Flacco did lose a fumble. Amari Cooper lost a fumble as well. But the Browns defense, that was the big thing. They forced Trevor Lawrence into 3 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence went 28 of 50 for 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. Evan Ingram had a great game, 11 receptions for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley had 4 for 53. Their rookie Parker Washington had a touchdown in this game. So with Christian Kirk being out, this guy's made a couple of plays. They might have found something in him. But yeah, I mean the Browns, they got to win. They get to 8-5 on the season. I think you got to ride out with Flacco. I mean, they opened up the game. They went 6 plays, 75 yards down the field. Flacco connected with David Njoku for 34 yards. Then there was a lot of punts. Then the Browns closed out the first quarter with another touchdown. Flacco connected with Njoku again. Then on back-to-back drives, there was interceptions by both teams. Jags punted. Browns fumbled. That was the Amari Cooper fumble. Jags scored a touchdown on that drive. Then the Browns punted. Trevor Lawrence threw another pick. Both teams traded punts. Then the Jags fumbled. The Browns turned that into a touchdown. Kareem Hunt scored a touchdown from 4 yards out to make it 21-7. Then the Jags punted. Browns fumbled. That was the Flacco fumble. That led to a Jags touchdown. Browns punted. Trevor Lawrence threw another pick. And that led to another touchdown. That was the one to David Bell on 4th and 3 from Jacksonville's 41. Then the Jags went down the field, scored a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence connected with Parker Washington. So that made it a 1-score game. Browns punted. Jags turned it over on downs. Browns turned that into a field goal. Then the Jags scored a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence connected with Evan Ingram. And that was the final score, 31-27. But, yeah, I mean, I think you got to ride it out with Flacco. I think you got to continue to ride Flacco until he plays bad, where you just have to take him out. But it's been an incredible story. They sign him to the practice squad. He starts against the Rams. They were competitive. They looked like they had a chance to win that game, but then it kind of got away from them at the end. Then they win here. These next 4 games, home against the Bears. The Bears have been playing better, so this is not going to be a walkover as maybe it would have earlier in the season. But but still, the Browns are at home. They could win that game. At the Texans, C.J. Stroud is missing some of his weapons. I mean, we don't know what the status is with Nico Collins at the moment. Well, I at least, I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see. Let's see if CBS. So, right now, he's calf injury questionable for Week 15 against Tennessee. So, but yeah, I mean, if he doesn't have Nico Collins either, I mean, those are your 2 top weapons. Dalton Schultz was already out. He's missed some time. So, who knows? And then you're home against the Jets. That's a tough game too with their defense. And then you're at the Bengals and Jake Browning's been playing good. So, I mean, the Browns right now, they got the top spot in the AFC wild card picture, and we'll take a look at that in the next segment when we go over the standings, because there's a lot of 7-6 teams right now. So it's going to be an exciting finish, with these last 3 weeks now. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to ride it with Flacco. I think right now that's probably the best course of action is to do that. I did say how last week he's in a much better situation than he was with the Jets, when he was backing up, Zach Wilson. Browns have a better offensive line, have a decent running game. Obviously, it'd be a lot better if Nick Chubb was there, but Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford have done the job this year. They have. Obviously, again, it'd be better if Chubb was there, but they bringing back Kareem Hunt was a smart move. And like I said, Jerome Ford's been running the football decent as well. And then they got a lot of weapons. Amari Cooper, one of the most underrated receivers in the league, although he fumbled, but still one of the more underrated receivers in the league. David Njoku is a real weapon. When he actually gets the ball. Like I said, Elijah Moore's been getting more involved in this offense. So and they got some other young receivers as well. So I mean, you look at the Browns. Yeah, they got a good team to surround Flacco, and also it helps when they have a good defense with one of the best players in the NFL, and that's Myles Garrett. So I mean, he's in a good situation, and they do have tough games on their schedule, but I mean, this team could definitely get to 10 wins. So we'll see how it plays out. I think that's probably what they go with. But we'll see. But how crazy would it be? Like, there's a scenario where we could see Flacco, maybe playing the Ravens in Baltimore, during the playoffs. I think that would be crazy. Like, if we saw, imagine seeing Flacco playing the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. That would be insane. To go to the Super Bowl, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But we'll see. But I think right now the Browns, they're sitting in a good spot. It's just kind of unfortunate with how their quarterback situation has gone this year. It's been a quarterback carousel. But they're in a good spot right now. But there's a lot of 7-6 teams behind them, so they just got to keep winning games. And we'll see how they play on Sunday against the Bears. Which again, earlier in the season, that's probably an easier game, but now, yeah, that's gonna be a tough game because they're playing better football as of late. So, and it's just. Flacco's got a big arm. It's just he's a pocket passer. He's one of, from the last generation of quarterbacks. He's a pocket passer. So it's kind of limited what you can do with him. But he's got a big arm. He's got the experience. And listen, you give him time to throw. He's got the weapons. I mean, yeah, he could still sling it a little bit. Obviously, he's not the Joe Flacco that, we saw winning playoff games for the Ravens, winning that Super Bowl with the Ravens, but he's still got some juice left in the tank. He does. So we might be seeing January Joe again. It's gonna happen. Either that, or we're gonna see Joe Flacco, as some people in the media like to call him. I mean, it's a good story though, and I think this is it for him. However the season plays out, he's probably done. But it's a nice way for him to go out, I think, because he's one of the quarterbacks, another one of the quarterbacks that I grew up watching. And that's another guy that's going to be, stepping away. There's not a lot of those guys left. I mean, you got Rodgers, Stafford. I'd probably put Russell Wilson in that category just because, he's been in the league since I've been in middle school. But yeah, I mean, once those guys are gone, then that's really it. Rodgers is going to be the next one. Stafford soon after that. And then eventually Russell Wilson's going to call it quits. And then that's basically it. Then all the quarterbacks I grew up watching are going to be gone. It's going to be really weird when that does happen. But the NFL's in good hands with the quarterbacks that are in the league now. But, I do miss a lot of the QBs that I used to watch. Because a lot of them, a lot of them are pretty much in media now. Tom Brady's going to be, joining the booth in Fox at some point. You got the Manning cast, of course. Matt Ryan's in the booth, on CBS. So, everybody's all over the place, But that's what happens, And Flacco's going to be the next one. Just imagine, again, another crazy scenario is just he comes back, he's winning games for the Browns, they somehow get to the Super Bowl and they win it. That would be unbelievable. But I don't know. Listen, the Browns have a good team, and they just need a quarterback. And what Flacco is doing, Flacco is capable of winning games still. So let's see what happens next week. I come back on Monday and be like, oh, man, what kind of performance was that? If they, lay a dud against the Bears. We're just going to have to, again, it's a game-by-game thing. I'm just fantasizing all these crazy scenarios. They play the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. The script writers, that's a good script. Joe Flacco comes back, wins the Super Bowl for the Browns, and they beat the Ravens in a championship game in Baltimore to get to the Super Bowl. There's your script right there. So, I have no idea who's going to make it to the Super Bowl. I have no idea because every team can be beat. Everyone can be beat. And right now, there's a lot of teams that are, playing really good football right now, but when you get to the playoffs, things could change. Things can change. So, we'll see. But for the Browns, game by game, you got to take it. And, good for Flacco. At least, he can go out on maybe a high note if he continues to play well with the Browns. Maybe starts a playoff game. You go down swinging in the playoffs. That's a good way to go out. Or they can go further. We'll see. But, these last 3 weeks are really going to be something. Because when we come back from our final break of the show, we're going to discuss, what's going on with, the playoff picture on both sides, division races, all of that. Because, like I said, in the AFC, you got 1,000,7-6 teams right now. And there's only so many spots, So that's what we will get into when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the current standings throughout the NFL. So we'll start off in the AFC. So right now, the The Dolphins are 9-4. Bills are 7-6. Bills are 2 games back. I don't know if I said earlier in the show if they were 1 game back, but yeah, they're 2 games back right now. And yeah, I mean, the Dolphins got a tough schedule coming up. Jets, good defense. I mean, they just won big against the Texans with Zach Wilson, so maybe, the Jets are going to give them some problems, especially if Tyreek Hill is, compromised with the ankle injury. Then you got Dallas coming in at the Ravens and then home against the Bills. Those are all tough games. So Dolphins got to figure it out. You got the Bills at 7-6 behind them, 2 games back. They got less of a tough schedule, but they got to deal with the Cowboys this week. At the Chargers, which got easier because it doesn't look like – I don't think Justin Herbert is coming back this year. Broken index finger. But we'll see. Then they're home against the Patriots, who they already lost to. I mean, if they didn't lose to the Patriots, they'd be in a much better spot this year. But they'd be in the playoffs right now. And then they're at the Dolphins, which is a winnable game. Is going to be a tough game, but it's definitely winnable, especially with, the way, the Dolphins have the way the Dolphins played last night. Jets are 5-8, not done yet. Possible that Aaron Rodgers could return on Christmas Eve. Now, it's not going to happen. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll believe it when I see it. It's not going to happen. But hey, the Jets get a win here, and suddenly you're like, maybe we got a shot here, because this is the toughest game left on their schedules at Dolphins. You win that game, Aaron Rodgers is healthy. You got the Commanders at the Browns, which is tough, but you could win that game. And then you're at the Patriots. And then suddenly you're 9-8. Maybe you squeak in. Maybe you get that 7 seed. Nah, it's not happening. Like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. Then you go to the AFC North. The Ravens, I think it's pretty much their division. They're 10 well. Not only that, they got the 1 seed. So they're 10-3. Browns 8-5. Steelers are 7-6. Bengals are 7-6. Yeah, Bengals are trending up. Not like, they're going to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but they could make the playoffs still. Steelers are definitely trending down because, I really don't think they're going to win a single game with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. You know what? I shouldn't say that because they got Mike Tomlin, and he hasn't finished with a losing season. This could be that season because, you're at the Colts, home against the Bengals, at Seattle, at Baltimore. Those are all tough games. And when your offense is, not very good, the defense can only do so much. TJ Watt and that defense can only do so much. So I don't know. We'll see. I think they got to win at least one more game. But then they'd finish 8-9 and he'd have a losing record. But not looking good right now for the Steelers. Then in the AFC South, Jags are 8-5, Colts are 7-6, Texans are 7-6, Titans are 5-8. But they picked up a win. They were actually the only team in the AFC South to get a win this week. And yeah, those are big losses for the Texans and the Colts because they win those games. They'd be the Texans would have passed the Jags. But yeah, they both lost. Then you got the Chiefs who are 8-5, Broncos 7-6, Chargers 5-8, Raiders 5-8. Broncos are 1 game back, so keep an eye on that. But I think the Chiefs, they still win the division. Then in the NFC East, so right now the Cowboys technically have the lead over the Eagles, but they're both tied at 10-3. Giants are 5-8, Commanders 4-9. NFC North, you got the Lions at 9-4, Vikings 7-6, Packers 6-7, Bears 5-8. Bears have won 2 straight now. They definitely looked like a better team. They're at the Browns, home against the Cardinals, home against the Falcons, at the Packers. I definitely could see them winning, 1 or 2 more games to close out the year. They're in line for that number 1 overall pick. So let's see, how Justin Fields plays these last 3 weeks. Do the Bears, stick with him and, trade out of the first overall pick, get a lot of assets? We'll see. Then you got in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead the way at 6-7. They're all tied, but technically the Bucs have all the tiebreakers. So they're 6-7. Falcons are 6-7. Saints are 6-7. Panthers 1-12. I mean, who wants to win this division? Right now, the Bucs have the best conference record. They're 5-4. Falcons are 4-5. Saints are 3-5. Bucs are 3-1 in the division. Falcons are 3-1 in the division. So I mean, yeah, I mean that game on Sunday was humongous for both teams, and the Bucs were able to pull out the win. And I didn't pick them. I switched to the Falcons. But I'm happy the Bucs won. I want them to win the division, but we still got a long way to go, even though we got 3 games left. And then, of course, in the NFC West, I mean, the Niners got that wrapped up. They actually were the first team to clinch a playoff spot. With the Packers losing last night, they clinched. I mean, yeah, and then the division is pretty much theirs with a win next week. So, yeah, they look really good right now. Those 3 games, that 3-game losing streak seems like years ago. So then you get to, the wild cards and right now the current seeding. So right now you got the Ravens as the 1 seed, Dolphins at the 2, Chiefs at the 3, Jags at the 4. I kind of see the Chiefs and the Dolphins flip-flopping, and I think the Chiefs will have the 2 seed. Ravens right now, they're in prime position for the 1 seed. But they got the Jags in Jacksonville, so it's going to be a tough game. They did lose there last year, but I think this time it'll be different. So with me saying that, go pick the Jags. At San Francisco on Christmas. That is going to be a great game. Well, I hope it's a great game. And that could be a Super Bowl preview right there. So they could lose that game. Then they're home against the Dolphins, which, the Dolphins went in there last year and beat them too. But the Ravens were banged up in the secondary, so that was part of the issue. So this could be a little bit different. And then they're home against Pittsburgh, which is a divisional game as well. So that could go, the Steelers could play them tough, maybe pull off the upset. But they already did pull off the upset this year, so I think the Ravens get redemption there. So, yeah, I mean, the Ravens, I think they get the 1 seed. And then you got the Dolphins and the Jags probably getting the 3 and the 4. I've been saying Dolphins a lot in this episode. Then in the wild card, this is where it just gets insane. So you got the Browns at 8-5. Then you got the Steelers at 7-6, the Colts at 7-6. Then you have the Texans at 7-6, the Broncos at 7-6, the Bengals at 7-6, and the Bills at 7-6. So that's 6 teams that are, I mean, right now they got the Colts and the Steelers over them because of tiebreakers. But actually, I don't understand how that works. Because the Texans beat the Steelers. They did lose to the Colts. So I don't get how the Steelers are still in it. I guess it's because of conference record. I think that's why. Because they're 5-4 in the conference. Colts are 5-4. Then the Texans are 4-4. Broncos are 4-5. Bengals are 3-6, and the Bills are 4-5. So I think that's So it's because of conference record. That makes sense. But still, I mean, I don't know. But whatever. I guess that's what it has to be then. Because the Texans beat the Steelers this year. They won 30-6, right? I think that was the final score of that game. But yeah, that's the AFC playoff picture. And then you got teams that are 5-8. I mean, listen, I know I talked about the Jets. Hey, Aaron Rodgers could be coming back. But yeah, I mean, right now I think it's just you look at all these 7-6 teams. Now, what 7-6 teams will make the playoffs? I think the Bills are going to get in somehow. They're playing better football as of late. I think they somehow find a way to get in. I kind of hope they do because I'd like to see them as a 7 seed as opposed to... Now, again, no offense to these other teams. I kind of don't want to see the Colts in it. But, again, no disrespect to them. But I just want to see better matchups. And having the Bills in as a 7 seed or a 6 seed would be insane. And then, yeah, I don't know. That last spot's going to be tough. But I think the Steelers are going to fall out of it. So it's either going to be the Texans, the Broncos. I mean, I think it's going to be either the Texans or the Broncos. I don't know. I mean, listen, the Bengals could definitely have a shot because they got all their weapons back, and Jake Browning has been playing good football these 2 games that he started. So I don't know. We'll have to see, but I'm hoping the Bills somehow find a way to get in. Then you move over to the NFC. Niners got the 1, Cowboys 2, Lions 3, Bucks 4. Got the Eagles right now in the 5, Vikings in the 6, Packers in the 7. Losing that game was tough because now they're tied with the Rams, the Seahawks, the Falcons, and the Saints. All those teams are basically tied with them. But the Packers have a lot of winnable games on their schedule to close out the year. I think I said 3 games. I meant to say 4. But yeah, they got the Bucks, the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears to close out the season. All winnable games. But I was definitely discouraged with their performance yesterday against the Giants, against a good defense. Defense has been playing better. They definitely banged up a little bit too. No Aaron Jones, no Christian Watson, which, again, was a concern. But I was like, I'm not really buying into the Tommy DeVito hype. But, that proved me wrong. Jordan Love looked like how he looked, through that stretch earlier in the season. So, then you got the Rams. Vikings winning 3-0 over the Raiders to get themselves to 7-6. That was just... I really did not watch that game where I was, but yeah, that was embarrassing. And Josh Dobbs got benched. They put in Nick Mullins. So, you got all these teams at 6-7, Vikings at 7-6. I think the Packers still get in. It's really that last spot. I'm going to be honest. I'm hoping it's the Rams. Because I don't want to see Desmond Ridder in the play. The Saints, like with Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, get Michael Thomas back. That's fine, if they got in. But, yeah, I'm not trying to see, the Falcons in the playoffs. But they definitely could make it in as the... they could make it in by winning the division and the Bucks get in as a wild card. But we'll see. A lot of 6-7 teams, a lot of 7-6 teams. It's gonna be a wild finish in these final 4 games. So that's pretty much it for the show for today. I'm gonna be working on getting the show from yesterday reposted into the 4 segments, of course. So if you missed anything, you could check them out. But of course, the live stream is still there from yesterday. Also, the audio portions of the shows are getting uploaded to, your whatever you use for your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify. So I know, like, we were, doing some moving around with where the shows are. So they will be the football ones are all updated. Like, they're on Spotify right now. So make sure to go check them out in case you just want to, listen instead of watching, me. But that's pretty much it. Again, the show from here on out, it's going to be from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Friday, the doubleheader. You got the baseball show, which is actually going to be at 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then, of course, you got the, football podcast will be a half hour later. So now the football podcast is after the baseball podcast. So look at that. Well, we got some stuff to talk about there with Ohtani signing with the Dodgers and, the specifics of the contract, because that has a lot of baseball fans, including myself, in an uproar. So, but that's pretty much it for the show for today. I thank you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to tune in again tomorrow. Look out for the shorts that are also coming out throughout the day. But until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.